Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to preview the reel I'm going to work on in a couple of minutes. This one is a Pflueger Pelican. It's was made in Akron, Ohio by the Pflueger Company. It is circa 1950s and 60s, has a lot of unique designs in it, so I thought I would take a moment to share those innovations with you before we get started. First, you'll notice there is a rear drag on this reel. That was uncommon at the time. We did do a reel earlier, which is the Swiss-made Record, which also had a rear drag system. It shares a design, a triangular design, with the Senator Pacifica or the Damn Quick models of the time. It does have a clicker here for that. I don't think it has the anti-reverse. It has a long neck, you'll notice, very interesting in that regard. Well, that neck is there because there's a unique oscillation system on this one. The axle shaft does not move with this reel. There's a yoke system in here, and there's a spring, a compression spring, that's responsible for moving this spool up and down. So when you're on the bottom part of the stroke, when you're down here, it's pushing that spring down, which makes reeling it up easier as it releases. So it's kind of a piston system, up and down, up and down. So stay tuned. We're going to take this one apart. You'll see all those features in there, and you'll come to appreciate the design and innovation of the Pflueger Pelican. Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and we're in for a treat today. Dick Lackman sent me a beautiful Pelican by Pflueger, fishing reel, old school, asked me to tune it up. We had worked on another one of his reels earlier, actually worked on two of them. It's a gorgeous little reel. Of course, I don't know much about it, so the first thing I did was I went out to the Orca site and I pulled the manual for it, which I'm going to make sure that Dick gets when we're done with this. But in there is a schematic, kind of give you a little bit of a view inside, gives you lots of neat information. But we have a schematic on what to expect from when you're servicing this, and it just doesn't look like there's a whole lot of parts in here. So we'll see what we can do. This one, I think the Airex, Beachmaster Airex Larchmont has a rear drag on it, so there is no drag up top here. But let's get started. So in order to get started, I generally do exactly what I was showing you there. I want to make sure that I can have an understanding beforehand of what it is that we're going to work on. And then we'll just go piece by piece on this to see if we can't do it in a logical manner. I have the blueprint behind me with those schematics, but also if I get stuck along the way, I want to make sure that I can reference back to it. I recommend that you take pictures along the way so that if you do get stuck and your memory fails you, that you can go ahead and see if you can't figure it out like that. And then finally, if you have a video camera or a picture a cell phone or that, just reference it frequently. There's no shame in that. All right, I hear that the anti-reverse is on. This little thing is popping out like a Damn Quick type one, so I think you just pull it up and over. Yep, and that'll eliminate the anti-reverse. And I like to do that before I get too far into a reel, because as I pull off the side, I want to make sure that I have that anti-reverse dog disengaged. Well, here's the jumping in. And I'm going to try and take the side plate off. It looks like it's a relatively simple mechanism underneath. I'm not sure if that side top plate screws out or if I have to remove this screw yet, so I'm just going to take a look, see what we have. It says 5054, which is on the other page, of course. That's interesting. It shorted me the number. All right, well, I'm going to guess that that's the screw. All right, well, let's take the three of these off. I'm wearing a protective glove to keep the elements off my hand. I'm also using a parch tray, just the bottom of a plastic gallon bottle. And that'll enable us to remove this. That manual that I pulled, very interesting. It gives you all kinds of interesting information. I know most of us just tend to discard the manuals or not pay much attention. It shows you various knots you can tie on your line. It tells you how to cast. It does some other things as a basic introduction to the reel itself and to fishing if this happened to be your first reel. All right, 3 screws out. Let's go ahead and pull that off. And as I kind of suspected, pretty interesting. We have a plastic main gear. Isn't that interesting? Not much going on there, so I don't even think we have to remove that. I was going to say if we wanted to. Well, if we wanted to, I think we just remove this. Take the handle off. While I'm doing this, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel and all the folks that are fighting the war on COVID every day. Your efforts truly are appreciated, and without your efforts, we just couldn't get this done. There's a pin in here now. I'm noticing that as I kind of play around with it. I believe that pin has got to get pushed in order to release the main gear. Well, there you go. We got the pin out just like that. All I needed was that little cup there to kind of keep that centered. All right, that pin comes out. This comes off. There's a little washer behind it. And push our main gear through, and kind of like what I expected. I didn't have to do much, but at least we'll get the grease back on the shaft here. We'll clean this grease off. I'm going to use just a penetrating oil as a cleaner. And if I didn't mention firefighters and EMTs and police, first responders of all kinds, and essential personnel, all the folks that are behind the scenes and maybe we don't pay attention as much to as we should, the folks that are the delivery folks. I've been complaining my neighborhood looks like a distribution center for FedEx and Amazon and the like lately, more and more trucks, but you know, that's keeping those of us that are a little bit leery about going out into the shopping malls and the like, it's kind of keeping us doing what we can do as close as we can to being normal. Special shout outs and thanks to teachers and all the teachers' aides and everybody who's helping to provide education during these trying times. It's difficult, and it is appreciated what you're doing. All right, we just greased the front of this gear, greased the side of it. You know, we've had we've had discussions as to whether plastic is cheap or not, or a cheap alternative. I don't think there's any reason in the world why this thing can't last another half a century or whatever it might be. Just looking at that little clicker there, it's kind of interesting. We have inserts here on the back, little holes. This is just a popper. So when you put it back in, it's just going to click in, click out like that. Kind of like the older big Penn Internationals. They were kind of the same way with their piece. All right, gear goes back in. I'm going to put the handle holder on. We're going to align that. I'll go to my porch tray because we needed that for this little gear pin here. And you don't want to lose any of these pieces and parts, so a porch tray is a good idea, because if you lose one of these, I must misplace that little washer there. That washer goes first. Little tension washer. Line your holes up. But as I was going to say, if you lose one of these today, you're kind of out of luck. Now, I guess with that, you can probably just take a little finishing nail for all that matters and kind of get that in. There we go. Not terrible. Get that inside the nook. And that's basically all you have to do with this assembly. Now, we have a groove here that's eventually going to grab that. So let's kind of just go put this whole assembly back on so we don't have to worry about that. And I'm just kind of bringing it back. And I just want to make sure that I get that locked in. You can look through the window to see that the piece is in there. There you go. That's your gear mechanism for the Pelican. Alrighty here. Now we have a little bit of cleaning to do. I'm not going to touch the rear drag. That seems to be working fine. I do want to get the axle shaft out, and I believe this is holding the axle shaft in here. We're just going to try and find out exactly what that is that's holding it in. In the meantime, we're going to spray it down here, and then we'll look at our schematic. Make sure that this is all clean. What looks like a lifetime of old grease in here. Looks like you don't have an option on the clicker here. It looks like it's kind of right there, and it's going to hit that fin, and that's all there is to that. Okay, I did a quick view on the schematic. Looks like we need to move up top and take some of the other pieces off. There is a little clip underneath. I did some cleaning. Let's go ahead and take the adjuster off. Let's take the spool off. Again, no drags in there. Let's take the main nut that's holding the rotor in off. This is a good place to take pictures now because things probably are going to get interesting when we pull this off. So we have our nut. We have a little washer. There you go. There's a spring. As I mentioned, things probably were going to get interesting there. So that spring is going to sit in there, and it's going to kind of ride in that collar there. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, this is a kind of an interesting torsion system here. And then I think we're still kind of stuck here. So I'm noticing that there's a little C-clip on here, which is probably holding this yoke assembly in. I don't know if you can see it much like that, but I did pay a little bit of attention to that earlier. And we're going to go get brave now and see if we can't take this off and see what happens. Well, it's hooked in on that side, so this is the side that's got to come out. And I'm using a little pick for this. So this adventure is continuing. I pulled the retainer clip from here, but I didn't release anything. So I went underneath now. I've just taken off the bottom plate, trying to figure out how to get my axle shaft out of there. So I reinstalled the spool so that I can get leverage here. There is a screw that apparently is holding the axle shaft on, so go ahead and take that off right now. Still threaded there. Now we should be able to get our axle shaft out. Yep, looks like we're still attached. Now there shouldn't be anything holding us in now. I think this is a case where you want to go back and put your spool on, button it up. And use that for leverage to pull it out. Okay, my camera just quit. I mean, this is some exercise here. Wow. All right, so we've got the nut off. I clean that up. We've cleaned the balance of this up. We haven't been able to remove this. There's a tool that has a fork on it on this side. I just don't have that tool. Probably could, if I needed to, I could probably use something like this, but I don't see a need to do that. This is spinning freely and it's only a bushing. We'll make sure that we get some good oil in there. Going to get some good grease onto the teeth of that pinion gear. This is where the schematic helped me. It said it was a nut, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me that nut. So there you go. All right, washer goes back in. Now this is a fork here, so you'll see that the cross hatchings on this. That's where that little retainer clip goes. So this retainer clip is going to sit in that little groove there, and it's going to prevent the nut from turning when you get there. All right, that's a nice, clean, beautiful piece of brass. I'm thinking it's brass. Could be something else. I'm not a metallurgist at all. Go ahead and put that back in. Looks like the washer got poked out there. That's all right. Put that back on. Hold that. Hold this. Now we have that little yoke and nut assembly. That's a good place. When I was taking that off, that would have been a good place to take pictures. if you were uncomfortable with the way that this went, looks like this can just get turned in by hand. Not finding any resistance there at all in terms of tightening this up. And then as we tighten this down, we want to make sure that where that hole is for the retaining clip right here, you want to make sure that that's got one of those cross hatches so that we can get that retainer clip in there. The retainer clip's got a little angle on it, so work with that. Through the visual, make sure that you can see that retention clip in the slot. Okay, we have it. That took a little bit of patience there, but patience is something you want to learn if you want to do real repair. All right, we're going to go ahead and put this back on now. Nice coating of grease there. Get the grease onto the click maker noise thinger there. I'm sure there's a fancy term for this, but that's where your clicker is going to go. You don't really need a lot of grease on it because it's just going to be a piece of metal knocking against it. It's not going to drive anything. And we can bring this back in then. All right, that's your noise maker. Next up, for those of us following along, is the axle shaft. The axle shaft is going to get inserted through the, I want to get a little bit of grease on that, through the pinion gear. Ride that all the way down, get it set. Okay, so when you're done, you should have that look. And we're looking for that little cylinder nut. That's next in. Use your wide screwdriver for that. So a very interesting reel. It uses this back button here as you drag, and I was just studying this for a moment there. There is a spring that tightens around this collar here. And as you drive this down to the off position, you're actually releasing the tension. You can see the spring is mounted up top here and rolls around. You're relaxing the tension on that spring. And as you tighten it down, it pulls the tension up on that spring, which is what's causing the drag to work there. But there's no material drag in a sense of what we might be expecting to see there. Okay. All right, so grab your plate. Let's put that over. Beautiful Pelican 1020, patent pending, made in Akron, Ohio, USA. There you go. That was where Pflueger was headquartered, out in Akron, and they bear the name. One reel is the Pflueger Akron baitcaster, which reminds me, I had a request on a Pflueger knobby to show how that drag system works. Very interesting design there as well. All right, a little bit of a micro driver, a little bit of a problem with me with small screws, as everybody pretty much knows who's watched the channel. I want to thank all of you that do watch the channel. We just surpassed 12,000 subscribers. It's helping me, and it's helping you, and it's helping the hobby of reel repair. So thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. That way you won't miss the episodes that I present. As you can tell, I work on all kinds of crazy reels, including this one. This one's been a little bit of a challenge. I haven't done one of these before. But like they say, the First step on a great journey is the hardest one, right? You got to just kind of step off and then worry about it. But doesn't mean you shouldn't have a roadmap either. And I get a lot of reels that have come in because folks have jumped in without doing their homework, if you will. Okay, we've got a yoke assembly. We've pretty much lubed up everything that's internal to this reel. What we want to find now is this is going to match into this groove right here with that grease on it. That's going to be our eccentric, and because it's offset, it's going to drive the reel up and down. And then we've got our keys here, which are going to drive off of that pinion gear. So at this point in time, we should just kind of find a way, visually sight it, and then we should be able to install our case, and without doing much, just see if it's working. Oh, look at that, working beautifully. Okay, let's put the 3 side plate screws into this so we can hold that down. So what have we done so far? Well, we've done an awful lot here, right? We've kind of done an exploratory in terms of the reel. Saw how it was made, cleaned everything up. We're not successful, unfortunately, in getting that pinion gear out of there, but you know, with older reels, if you just don't have that tool and parts aren't available, sometimes you just have to use your judgment and say that's that. And since this one only needed a little bit of cleaning and re-lube on it, I'm satisfied that we did okay there, and we don't need to do more. These are beautiful stainless steel screws. They've been around a long time, and they're still showing a nice shine to them. And I thank Dick for sharing this reel with us. It's a wonderful little piece of history, and it's kind of been fun to work on, just to see how the pieces and parts come together here. Now, we didn't take that rear drag off completely. There is a little spring inside there that we didn't touch, but you don't need to do that unless something was breaking in there. I think we got it this time. Not a lot of parts left in the parts tray, so a relatively uncomplicated reel when you after you figure it out. All right, this big old spring goes next. We saw that kind of jump out. And a little bit of dirt under that cone there, so let's get that out before we go any further. It's also spray. You don't need to do much with this bail spring here. Just make sure it's lubed. Grab that cotton swab. I guess that's just discoloration. I guess it's not anything to do with the dirt. This gets pressed down now. And we get our rotor nut to go on. Tighten that down. A big 17mm nut here. Let's take our spool next then. There's a little lip that spool rides. Tighten the spool clip down. It'll help you hit notifications. That'll show you when I'm coming with new videos. And if you have a reel that you would like me to repair or work on, then please contact me by information on the business card that follows. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.